Please call the roll.
Gustafson. Here. Babcock.
Here.
Petty. Here. Malaco.
Here.
Sima.
Here.
Right.
Here. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from the July 5th committee of the whole meeting? So moved.
Second.
Motion by trustee Sima, was it over there?
Yeah.
And second by trustee Petty. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Minutes are approved. Public comment. Anyone like to? Order of public comment?
Michael McGinnis, 10295 Ray Drive, Roscoe, Illinois. I just wanted to share some comments about Halloween. Is that appropriate?
Yep.
Okay, good. Comments, Facebook comments. Someone says should be on Halloween. Trick or treating must be on Halloween, just as other surrounding communities. We were sworn last year from surrounding communities. Police were overwhelmed by inconsiderate parents. Parents have survived for years, taking the kids out one night a week to trick or treat. Trick or treat on Halloween is a tradition. Follow it. When it's not on Halloween, neighboring communities drive here and flood the subdivisions. Cars up and down the street.
Are all these gonna be Facebook comments, Mike?
Yeah,
All right. Is that representative of the bulk of the statements of saying change it back?
one more is said should be Saturday,
Okay, very good.
and that was all. That's all I had.
I just don't want to delve too much into social media.
Okay, good.
Commentary.
Well, I think it's good to have that.
Thanks, Mike.
So I really do. To have that pulse.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
My fault. Any other public comment?
No apology necessary, Scott. I think you're correct and say, okay, if they're all the same, we got. So.
My thought on that is that social media discourse doesn't always strike me as sort of being the thing. And maybe it is, maybe I should think like, we've all seen social media commentary sometimes devolve into some pretty ugly stuff. For that matter, what we should do is print them all, if we have on our website or if there's any place that we can find commentary, so like print all the commentary out and distribute it to all of you guys.
And I agree with you.
I don't want to.
Unfortunately, nobody's here tonight talking about it. We're gonna vote on it, but I have talked to people and I think at least Mike came and expressed his opinion that, hey, this seems to be the general consensus about it. So I appreciate that, but I appreciate your point, Scott, that, okay, we don't need to hear every single one.
Right.
We'll go right into new business. 5.1, discussion or recommendation for a special event permit for the Lions Club Fall Festival. This obviously takes place in Leland Park, and it also involves a parade down Main Street. It's September 8th, 9th, and 10th. Both of those, the street closure for the parade and the use of the public facility both dictate that this is a special event permit that needs board approval. It's at committee of the whole now, because it will move on to the board at the next meeting in conjunction with their Class T liquor license application. If there's a motion to approve.
So moved.
Yep. Motion, Mike, right? Second. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Right.
Yes.
Malaco.
Yes.
Babcock.
Yes.
Petty. Yes. Sima.
Yes.
Item 5.2 is discussion or recommendation for entering into an agreement for website redesign. We received 5 or 6 different proposals, maybe pretty wide ranging in approach and in price. I'll tell you that Joe and I reviewed them all, and I think we both landed on a top 2 favorite. To me, they're virtually interchangeable. I think that and it was who and
Revise and Civic.
Where are each of those from?
Revise
They're
Minnesota.
both,
Michigan.
they're essentially both national though.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, they're different, but they're correct.
Correct. Like 1,200 of them, or
That sounds wonderful.
1,500 of them.
Rockford is,
And-
if I look at one, City of Rockford is Civic, and then I think Glencoe and Tinley Park, I think are good examples of Revise.
I say this kind of with a heavy heart, we did solicit and I spent time on the phone with local web designers, so I'm sure we'd be well served in that space too, but in the end, you can't argue with the sheer breadth of experience and understanding of the process. I think we will be in very good hands. We will be guided through the process expertly with either of these vendors. I sat through.
Specific to municipalities, that's the
Yeah,
big thing about this.
Why not?
We're not a corporation with IT and web designers or anything else. We have to rely on a service to do this. They have the experience of it. They have the templates. They've got the general structure. And they know, okay, here's what a municipal staff person who's gonna be updating this on a regular basis has to know how to use and can use. So
Even the way they structure their proposals, it shows they know what they're doing, because there's a base scope. Because they know what you're gonna need. And then there are add-ons that when we get to that point, we'll go over those with you. And here are some other packages, or here are some other things your website might be able to do. Maybe it's already served elsewhere. Maybe it's a code enforcement module, but that's already being served better somewhere else, or maybe it's a license management. Just by the sheer way they propose the scope and break down their fees, even that was informative to me. The steps in the process. I remember sitting through, Ann and I sat through Revise's presentation several months ago. I was very much impressed by them. I think I was equally impressed by the other proposal. I just didn't have I don't think I did a presentation with Civic Plus.
I have a question, which can roll it out faster? I've only,
timeline wise, it's Civic Plus is within, I think they had maybe 6 or 8 weeks, and it was maybe 6 or 8, I think about an 8-month process, I think was the proposal for Revise.
Revise was much longer.
I'd like to
The
make a
pricing, they're
comment.
about the same.
I'd like to make a comment, actually, we'll have some familiarity with Civic Plus.
oh,
My daughter lives in Fayetteville, Arkansas. So I talk to her and she uses their website all the time. She loves it. It does everything that I need to know. My son here happens to lived in Fayetteville as well. So the reason why Civic Plus came up, because before Scott and Joel got into this, and before we knew we needed a website back before we were running for election. So I looked for, and I found Civic Plus. And then I recommended that, hey, the Carol to say, look into Civic Plus. So I don't know the other one, but at the end of the day, this company, that's what they do. And because Walmart is so close to Fayetteville, there's a lot of influence. You have a lot of technical people. They wouldn't have picked Civic Plus if they didn't go through a 900 different qualification methods to it. So that was my 2 cents on Civic Plus.
What were the 2 towns? You said 2 towns? Glenn?
Glencoe and Tinley Park both
Okay.
use it, but you'll see, when you look at all these sites, you'll already recognize the Civic websites. Oh, and sorry, so Civic, I mean, that's Revised. Civic is, City of Rockford is Civic.
Okay.
So you look at Civic, you look at City of Rockford, I really like how they're just laid out. When we sort of started this whole process, we were looking at that sort of general idea,
Alright, thanks.
but you'll start to recognize the 2 different companies. But I think Scott and I will bring the final proposal next board meeting for
which
one of
company?
those 2, yeah.
I think probably Civic Plus is what I'm hearing. Now, our one caveat, when you ask about the timeline,
Yes.
the
that's
Civic
what
Plus is
I'm-
proposing, and Joe was accurate in how he phrased it. He said they have proposed a faster timeline. Civic Plus also bought Community Code.
Minicode took us many years. Excellent. And then they were purchased, I think, part of the transition they got lost, and so it took about 4 years to get our Minicode went back out. So hopefully it will not be that correct time on Civic, but I mean, City of Rockford's start to finish was pretty fast, actually. So I mean, look at Rockford's website and how the redesign turned out, I think is very nice, just visually and finding things and how they got bolded things, just easy use.
So we'll take a motion to recommend Civic Plus onto the board.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by trustee Petty, second by trustee Wright. Clerk, will you call the roll?
Babcock,
Yes.
Wright,
Yes.
Sima,
Yes.
Petty,
Yes.
Malaco.
Yes.
Thank you. Item 5.3, discussion or recommendation. The modification of the days and hours for Halloween trick or treating in the village of Roscoe.
Can I kick it off and give you guys some background? We asked for 2 years. We made the change. We asked for 2 years. It's up now. Over those 2 years, I did some tracking on emails, social media, our next door site. I talked to some people walking around. So text, roughly 100 people, so 0.01% of our population, which isn't too good. But the good thing was it was very geographically spread out. And what the feedback I got is that the younger families liked the Saturday, but the older kids liked Halloween. And Halloween won, I think it was like 70% out of that, wanted to go back to Halloween. So that's what the people have asked for. So we've done our 2-year test, and I think it's time to probably go back with what they're asking for. But that's just some numbers that I had out there that I'm tallying over the last few years. We have our next door thing currently tallying, and I think we have 2 to whatever it is, 12 for Halloween. So it's definitely coursing that direction.
Thanks for
Yeah,
holding
Yeah.
that information together. That was good.
Thanks.
this is one of those cases where I do believe, same thing with the garbage, when the garbage issue here, you know, you have to let people. You know, that's the point where Michael used social media, get as much information as you can. To see what people are, and I did that as well, and it seemed to be about 50-50 or a little more towards Halloween. I will say that the old administration went on record, maybe Mr. McGinnis could testify this, but that South Beloit and that Rockton and some of these other communities were going to come on board with this eventually. So when such a burden for just Roscoe, which I don't think we've heard from any surrounding communities that they have any intention
Never did
of
it.
doing that.
No,
Which I think creates an undue burden on Roscoe, because really you want to do this for our village residents to take advantage of it. And you're gonna get a lot of people coming from outside, and you know, I would do the same thing if I lived in Rockford, trick or treat on Halloween, people come up to Roscoe for a Saturday. So you know, that if it was spread out with the other, or with the intention was with other villages around, it was sort of thing that would make sense, but it seems like that our village is sort of very burdened on that.
Well, I enjoyed going from 5 trick-or-treaters to 20. I can see where some of the outlying subdivisions went from 100 kids to 500 kids. Definitely would be a burst. That was me.
If it's gonna potentially fall on a weeknight, your thoughts on hours?
Tuesday night this year.
That- what-
31st is.
Anyone
Tuesday
know
night.
what others? I set till 7 till
May
8.
may I looked it up, what 2022 was for some communities. Rockford, Les Park, and McChesney do 5:30 to 7:30. Rockton does 5 to 7, and South Beloit does 4 to 7. So they're all.
I'll share the kind of dovetails right into that. Trustee Block, I think got late word that he wasn't able to make the meeting tonight, and he did send me a text, and he just asked if I would chime in on this matter. That he called schools, the bus company, and asked what the last routes were running through Chicory. And they said about 5 p.m. the final bus route drop off through Chicory. A variable to consider, I guess, if you're setting that kind of dovetails in with the 4:35, 5:30.
5:30 to 7.
That sounds
A
good.
lot of people being home, they hand out candy here.
Well, that's, I mean, that's part of it, right? So a lot of people are racing home from, get pie, a lot of people get off the planet, they're racing home to try to get candy.
Today,
5:30 would be good start time.
today I spoke to it's a constituent back in Prairie Flower. And he was with his little girl at Porter Park. And really great conversation with this guy, and he's a Rockford firefighter. And his daughter was involved in the conversation, his 8-year-old daughter. She liked it on Saturdays. And he did too, as a working father, but he recognized public safety issues because of just the nature of his job and his profession. And I said, well, you know, other communities haven't followed suit. He said, I've noticed. So I didn't expect you to be in favor of this. I don't,
I still, like I said, I like the increase for my neighborhood in Saturday, and I see a benefit of Saturday of the kids not having to get up and go to school. I see the benefit of the families being home. But it's a huge input from the community, even though that's a 1.01% of our community talking to us. That's still something, right? And geographically, it was across all of our communities, so.
I'll tell you that most of the people, a lot of people voiced anger about it to me. Those that voiced support, curious, a lot of them identified themselves as educators, as teachers. And I think kind of acknowledged that their support was, they appreciated not having Halloween as a distraction during the school week of having, the kids ramping up for it on the day of and maybe seeing sugar crashes the next day. It was just interesting, but that the repeated support came from people that were identified, they were school teachers and like to push it Saturday.
Well,
Different
Halloween's for the neighborhoods, right? And for the communities, who lives where, not people coming in from other places. And I don't blame people for coming in from other places. I would do it too. But I mean, I think you're gonna get a lot of that. And that, that really doesn't create that sense of community, that they live somewhere else coming up. So, the kids that live here are sort of, penalized. So I think that that's something to consider.
okay, I make a motion to send this to the board, we move back, or do we have to make this in the form of?
I would make a motion, sure.
Make a motion to move Halloween back to the day of Halloween
October 31st.
and trick or treating from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m.
Is there a second?
By the way, how do you feel about that?
Public safety, it has been reduced with a large increase in foot traffic.
Yeah.
Obviously, our concern is just people in the streets and everything else.
Yeah.
Like, Trustee Malco said, I mean, it is like some areas, it's not that big of a deal. But when you talk about larger subdivisions,
That's right.
Chickford Ridge or something like that, I mean, there is a lot of people and it's not necessarily a small subdivision, but compared to the amount of people that are coming in, we also notice too that it is very much not just Roscoe residents. I mean, Roscoe residents probably make almost a smaller amount of the people out there. And they're coming in from, just lots of people in from everywhere, kind of, I mean, literally just dropping the kids off in the subdivision, leaving. So then, we're then trying to make sure that everybody is doing it safe and if anything happens, trying to get hold of the parents or anything else. I mean, it would be way easier on public safety if it was on October 31st.
And by the way, this gentleman today, this firefighter, was the son-in-law of Steve Dixon, who was the former police chief in Rockton. So I just really appreciated his interest.
Oh, I think Justin had another request for the two roads to have no parking on them.
Oh, my phone died. I think you're right. I think you asked.
Two main roads, if we could do no parking on the two main.
Almost like the rolling sale, but just on the two.
Yeah, just the two main, so they can park on all the artillery, but not the two main strips. They can do no parking through there.
Yeah, I think it was right on that.
I think that would help traffic flow and safety.
Yep, definitely.
Thank you. Got that. My phone had died, so I couldn't reference it. 5.4, discussion of village.
So we have to vote.
Oh, we have a motion in a second.
Malco,
Yes.
Babcock,
Yes.
Petty,
Yes,
Wright,
Yes.
Simons.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, now 5.4, discussion of village sponsored special events and festivals. President Gustafson, I think you had this on there. You want to take the lead on this?
I just was asking that we have a little summary of what the Village of Roscoe defines as a sponsored festival. For new board members, our ordinance or resolution identifies fall festival and hometown holiday. So we had passed the special event permit for the fall festival. We wish to continue with involvement here and our involvement with fall festival, whatever resources fall festival uses, like police are then billed, correct?
For fall festival,
For fall, Yes,
Yeah.
Fall Festival, yes, and they reimburse the village.
The Lions Club.
Yes, the Lions Club does do that. So, and then there is some assistance with organizing the parade and I guess publication, promoting, but not the mailings that they do. So there is this working relationship to make it happen. But it is largely the Lions Club that takes that over. They, winter holiday or the hometown holiday, that started out as a cooperation, I guess, between Elevate 1.5 and the Village of Roscoe. And I'm not certain about what the division of labor is. I've not been part of any of those meetings, but plan to this year. So my question for you is, do you wish to continue with the village involvement in a winter hometown holiday? Last year, the dollars amount were what, about 4,000?
I'm looking up, it was, I'm trying to find last year's, 2021, we spent, the village paid only $813, but I think it was a little more last year. But I think it was under 2,000. I mean, I'll find it, hold on.
I think it was like 1,500.
Yeah.
Well, they reimbursed us, but at one point it was over $4,000, but I don't know what was
Well,
reimbursed.
those might have been the total expenses, but yeah, hold on. So I'm looking at, so for example, in 21. That's the first memo I'm finding. We had, and we run it lean. We had total expenditures of $1,903, and that included signs and everything. It was $225 for design services for the artwork on the signs, 2 4x7 signs, 25 18 by 24 yard signs. Those were $258, $300. We had posters printed, 50 posters, and that was only $30. We paid a DJ $300. We paid Santa $165. We donated $150 to the Roscoe Middle School band, and we donated $250 to Hananiga High School band, and we underwrote the ceramic ornaments from Arnold at $225. So the total expenditures were $1,903. We took in donations of 500, 250, 250, 250, 250, and we covered the rest at 813. So we paid 813 of it. That was in 2021. Trying to find last year's.
Well, you're looking, the essential question is this something that you wish to continue with? And if so, gather ye volunteers here who might be of some assistance. Hold on. And if you know of anyone who might want to make contributions.
What happened before Elevate in this holiday? Christmas thing?
Why don't you call?
And why isn't the chamber involved in this stuff? Have they not been?
They refused to be. Flat out. And if, I mean, it was, so we started this in 2017. And we thought it was going to, we tried to do it jointly with the State Line Chamber. We wanted them to be the recipient of donations. And we offered to do, the lion's share of the legwork, but they ended up voting not to participate in any way. And yeah, played no role in it whatsoever.
Is
In
that
fact, it even, I don't know, it became a weirdly. They even got mad at their executive directors where they felt that he was overstepping and still helping out against their wishes. So the next year we did it largely ourselves that first year. And it was very small. It was a very small event. And then partnered with, starting in 2018, partnered with Elevate 1.5, expanded the footprint some. And we instituted the municipal, that's when we started doing the tree down here at, it was then K Page and now Blevins. That's lit every year. We kind of, Troy sends his guys up to find how many strings the squirrels may have chewed through, and we replace some lights. But this, so we had, that was 2018, 2019, there wasn't one in 2020. 2021 sort of resumed, and then 2022 was the first year we expanded it all the way up to Main Street Square, and State Line Mass Transit jumped on board and provided a holiday shuttle and really decorated it up, put lights on it. Sharon was in costume. And then we set up last year, we bought new, and we'll use them for everything, but we bought 8 of those A-frame plastic signs, the 24 by 36 ones. So we set those out to identify participating businesses. And then borrowed 2 more, even bigger ones from Rockton, or 3 of them, to set up the holiday shuttle stops, to do a signage that identified where the holiday shuttle would stop. They stopped at the fire, right down here at the tree. And then at the Myers always participates, the K-9 colony, and then one of the stops was up in the loop they made through Main Street Square.
I got the total for you.
Okay, thanks.
So the total was 4,095 in the village. Was below budget at 2,845 with a donation of 1,250 from 815.
Okay, so we were 28. Okay,
So back to once, I guess, the organization takes place, we can get back to more information. There are committees and subcommittees that some of you might want to participate in or have ideas for programs.
It really has been lackluster, hasn't it?
I think there's
Mike?
always room for growth and development, huh?
Are you talking about special events?
The fall, excuse me, the hometown holiday.
I times have thought I would rather have a winter festival sponsored by the village than to do this at Christmas. Because there are so many things going on at Christmas in other communities.
When were you thinking about having it?
I don't know, January, February. It's just something to think about in the future. Rockton has not only a parade at Christmas. We don't have a parade anymore. We did.
We used to, but actually, that's how it all started, was
Right.
parade. One of the former presidents wanted a parade to compete with Rockton, and that's how it started, and never really took off.
It never took
Never
off.
had backing and support and didn't need it.
So it would be great if in my mind, if it did. But to spend $3,000 on something that, how many people participated, do you think, last year?
1,200.
That's more than I expected.
Every place was absolutely packed.
I would just say, Sue, that's probably a good idea, but I think it would end up like the Halloween thing, you know, it would be something as tradition is gonna ride moving it to some other date, you know.
It wouldn't be the Christmas event. It would be, Rockton has something called Yeti Fest. It's a winter.
Yep.
To do.
So you're proposing something in addition to the Christmas?
No, I was proposing not participating in the Christmas event in Queens. Because I think Elevate 1.5 and the fire department would still be involved. Scott, you do spend a lot of time.
I spent some time.
in the hometown.
Spent a lot less last year.
Well, as I said, if it's all right with you, organizational meeting is next Thursday, or at least one of them can report back as to what the structure looks like.
Do you want me to?
No, I mean, we can.
Okay.
We can report back to the board what the structure
Okay.
looks like.
The structure, there's a planning committee.
Yeah, and well, we know subcommittees, no delineation of responsibilities of these various.
There are no subcommittees.
Oh, okay, well, we'll see what we can get going.
So you want to add, okay, I guess I'm trying to hear if you want me to do more work or less.
Oh, I don't know, because I don't know how this functions. This will be our first time too. To see who has ownership of what is a curiosity here.
So you saying there's a meeting on Thursday that
Is
organizes?
next Thursday.
Correct.
Next Thursday is a preliminary meeting, is my understanding.
Who attends that?
Good question. Chuck Gilbert, right? Does he bring anyone with him?
No, me.
Michael will be there, and I don't know,
I'll tell you.
Do you have a representative?
certainly.
Of course, it was Mike Dunn was a representative, but Sue Petty had been at one point. And then didn't want to anymore, and then Mike Dunn did it, and
I know.
1 or 2 years, yeah. Let's see. Where are these? I'm just going to the mailing distribution list.
10 o'clock, I think.
Um,
On
So
Thursday.
Tony Brown from Stepping Stone, Stacy Fry from formerly of what's that, office supply, or school supply shop in there.
Oh, 30 hours.
Yeah, Gene Seegers, Clyde Grooms, Mark Alberts, Mike McGinnis, Marge Pouch, Mike Dunn, Jim Blevins, Bob Nowicki, Don Chublin, Paul Myers, Kelly Friedland. So you have the superintendent of the schools, you have pastor from Roscoe United Methodist Church. It won't be Don anymore, it'll probably be John Bergeron from Harlem West Fire Protection District.
Okay, 10 a.m. on the 27th.
9, I think it was.
Okay.
Let's see, you're going.
Thursday, July 27th, 9 a.m. at Roscoe Village Hall.
Oh, we're hosting it. Okay. All right, and so the fire department and Elevate 815 are gonna be there, and the names that you listed.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
And then we'll report back after that.
Mhm.
Discussion of the CDL training program for Public Works Department employees. Try to give a little background and lead us into that, man.
Yeah, first I want to say, start off, signboards I did have up for the full-time positions. I had them up for about a week and I was actually impressed because probably the most applicants that we've had. Even with the websites that we've had to pay and stuff like that, I've gotten 8 or 9 resumes back, applications back. But there's 4 of them that have the CDLs, 5 of them has a CDL out the air brakes. And then there's 4 or 5 more that we're still waiting for them to turn back in. So it's actually pretty good turnout for just putting up, the message boards. I think they work pretty good. We just had one on Swanson right at Public Works, and then obviously the one that was right out here. But I guess the background on this was staff's bringing this to the board to see if you would reconsider maybe possibly hiring someone without a CDL, because as we all know, it's getting hard right now to try to, find, applicants that have a CDL, different things like that. Passport, they did not want to hire someone with this without a CDL. Well, like I said, now it's time to change, and we started to look into a couple different places. One place we checked was Black Hawk Tech College, and they cost like courses out of state, so it's like $8,000 a student to go to the course. But Rock Valley has the best one that we found. And actually, right now they have a grant program that if you're a resident of Winnebago County for a year, they reimburse your tuition, except for the $250 that's like the testing and the background checks. And with Rock Valley, it's still a 10-week course or a 5-week course. I'm sorry, 8 hours a day, 5 weeks. So it's pretty much like a full-time position. They do have nights available, which is like 4 hours, but then it drags out the 5-week course to 10 weeks. And as of right now, the grant goes to December, and they'll have to renew for a new grant. And this is like the 3rd year they've had it, so it could come back, it could not. They didn't really know for sure. They do offer. You could have a special program set up, like if you had 4 or 5 employees that they could come to Roscoe, or you can send them to the Rock Valley to do certain times. But the tuition grant is waived, and you'll still have to pay, the $5,000 for it.
Per person.
Yes. That owns to me, I mean, this is my opinion, it's almost like a bigger company. Bigger municipality or, something like how like a UPS has like other guys come or something like that and train. I don't know if that'll work good for us, but, and right now it's a 10-week backup to try to even get into the class, but he said if we have one person that we wanted to send, that they could sneak them in.
How many people do you need to hire?
We have 2 full-time for streets, and then there's 1 position still available for parks.
Do any of the ones that submitted the CDLs, are they in the running or do they don't meet your?
Yeah, there's 2 of them for sure, look pretty good. We're gonna start scheduling probably tomorrow on, see if we can get them in the interview.
So your idea talking to schools is like that we would help if they join the village, then we would help pay their tuition for a CDL if they didn't have a CDL, is that where you were?
Well, right now with the grant, the community would pay for, we'd still have to obviously pay them, we'd have to hire them first, and then we'd have to pay for them to get the class.
Right, but they, in other words, we could hire someone without a CDL, give them the training, so then they would commit to working for the village for a certain time, not just leave, right?
Good, yeah, right
I
now,
think you'd have to put a stipulation if we're gonna pay for them that they need. Yeah, I'm supportive of hiring people without a CDL if they might not ever have the opportunity to get their license, but they might be willing to come here and then sign a 2-year agreement to stay with it. Whatever, some term that says, okay, if we pay for this, you stay with the village for a certain term. Or if you leave, then you have to pay for your schooling. Reimburse the village or something like that.
What's our need for CDL? Do we have? I don't know. Do we?
CDL for all our trucks and our big trucks in the winter time.
Oh, okay.
And pull them trailers.
Gotcha.
I think one of the hopes was, and I can't, I haven't asked for this the way it's worked out with our applicants, but I know that over the years, when we've targeted hires, we've tried to see if we couldn't hire entry level, if we couldn't bring people in. It's been a more starting capacity. And when we struggle with that, seems like the applicants we got were all, which is maybe a nice problem to have, I don't know. But wondering if that didn't open the door, maybe there's some younger entry level applicants if they didn't have to have their CDL in advance. I think we were finding most of the people that had their CDL in advance also had significantly more experience if they were looking to make a switch at this point in the career.
Yeah, I would agree with that. But if you can't find the people that have the CDLs, then we got to open it up to, educate people. What I heard is we're having trouble hiring people and the availability, they're not interested. I think it was a good idea. I saw the sign. Glad you got a response.
We do a similar agreement with law enforcement, where if they leave within a certain period of time, they owe money back, reimbursement to the village, and it's a sliding scale. It's a certain percent in the first year, a lesser percent after 2 years, a lesser percent after the 3rd year, and after 3rd year, then there's runs 3.
So what's your recommendation to us?
I'd like to see my recommendation. I mean, obviously, like you said, there's still things we need to work out of some type of contract or how many years or what, since they're not as high, like at more of an entry level pay scale or something like that. So that stuff still needs to be worked out. But I think staff's recommendation or my recommendation would be at least change it that we could possibly hire someone at an entry level without a CDL.
Make a motion to do that.
What was the hesitant with the old board not wanting to have, having someone with CDL only, not opening up to somebody who got it? Was it the risk or, experience or what was the reason why?
Just so you would have someone on staff who could plow snow and operate all of the big equipment.
Maybe it was different, maybe there's more applicants then or something, and more people available then. Times
There used to be a lot more.
Yeah, for sure. The hiring climate has changed.
Yeah.
Joe, in crafting like a contract, if they left before, let's say the 2 years after they were trained, what's the likelihood of us recouping any money?
Or we have. So far, we've had 2 officers who have left and they've recouped what we've actually spent on both of them.
That's exactly where I was going.
Officers are much cheaper actually than that CDL program. There's a lot more grants we're getting back, so we're not paying as much.
How will, I don't want to, I mean, we can cross the bridge when we come to it, but I just wonder if we have a grant that fully reimburses us for their CDL
Yeah,
coursework. I'm just curious, is that what you said might be the case?
yeah, because well, technically, I mean, if we're not, it'd be only $250 or something that we'd be out.
Oh,
So, but I only bring it up because we have learned, one thing we've learned in this is that it is difficult to try to get any kind of payback for wages paid, right? That's,
No, I wasn't suggesting, I was saying that just for the education cost.
Okay.
And even though if you got a grant that paid for it, still, you don't want to go through the process with someone and train them. And then they leave after the training and you don't get at least some benefit out of it. So whether we got a grant to pay for it or not, I would require a mandate that, hey, doesn't matter, we got a grant to pay for it. We're giving you an opportunity, you're gonna get it as value. So then,
the license has value.
value, the less of the value. So I support it, so I like your recommendation, Troy. Is it? Do we make a motion at this point, or are we going to talk about it? I'd make a motion to go with Troy's recommendation. And Joe, write up a contract that makes sure we're covered.
So I'm gonna take this as a motion to recommend to the board authorizing the hiring of public works to employees without previously holding the CDL.
So we're not gonna do that till we see what Joe comes up with for this paperwork, right? But that needs to be in place before we do any of that.
Before we hire them.
Yes, before we hire anyone.
Yeah, I would say that's an assumption that we have an agreement of what we just.
Well, I don't even need to bring it forward to the board until that's done. It doesn't have to be at the very next board meeting.
That would be better, so we could review it here, make
I
any
would agree.
fixes, and then move it forward.
Cool.
Yes, that's.
Is there a second?
I second it.
Thank you, Sue.
So could you call the roll?
Babcock,
Yes.
Petty,
Yes.
Malaco,
Yes.
Wright,
Yes.
Simon.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion, old business discussion of the comprehensive land use plan timeline and process. I don't know the process yet. I'll give everyone a copy of the RFP. You can see the process, at least the steps in the process that are outlined, but largely we put it on them. To define what their process will be for us. I'm surprised I've not had robust interest. In fact, a couple people we sent it to have indicated they might not respond, or one wanted more time, so I reached out to yet another one. I would like to honor a request for more time, and especially since I'm sending one fresh one out. I was going to have these back on the 28th, and I'd like to push it 2 weeks to August 11th.
So Scott, recently I learned that there was a conference that you and Sue attended with these municipalities. Would that be a place where you'd find these kind of people for making developments?
Oh,
Instead of,
for sure. Yeah, that's one of the steps I did. I mean, I have some experience in the planning world and know some of the bigger names, but also I went to 20 different municipalities' websites to look at their comprehensive land use plan and see who prepared them and how they look. Yep.
yeah, I'd give it the 2 weeks, whatever you need.
I also sent it to R1 now, only because, well, they're probably not in a position to, R1 is our regional planning agency, our MPO, our Metropolitan Planning Organization. They're not probably in a position to handle this thing start to finish. But they wanted to review it for scope just to see if there's a role they could play, if there's any, and I don't know, but it doesn't hurt to let them take a look at it. But to see if maybe there's a role they could play that could lessen the scope that the consultant might be proposing, and perhaps they could facilitate that part cheaper with their in-house staff. So that could be coordinating them. There's components of this where we require public participation. I assume that maybe they roll in. We'll see, but I'm gonna send it to them too. They asked for it. And I'd like to kick this right into presentation I've been looking forward to. Code enforcement officer extraordinaire, Rick Wilder.
Before that happens, can I just ask for Mike's comment the last time, do we limit the length of time you're on the presentation? That's to your advantage here.
Thank you.
I'm
You got some
gonna give a
time, man.
super brief intro though. He has revolutionized code enforcement in the village of Roscoe. We just handled it in a different way before. We handled it with an employee who was split part-time between the police department. The part-time officer and part-time code enforcement officer. It was totally handled on that side of the building. He had been around for a very long time. Just had a different approach to it. Vic, we poached Vic, I don't mind saying that, from Winnebago County Health Department. He brought 20 years of code enforcement experience and was known countywide to be the best at it. We got it. Floor is yours, Vic.
Well, thank you.
Sorry, before you even did the presentation.
Yeah, I feel like I need to go put a cape on or something, so, I do have a PowerPoint that goes through everything in Google Docs library, if anyone wants to look there. I'm not gonna go word for word, I hate doing that, so I just kind of want to give you a follow along, and, Scott, thank you so much for the introduction. You now know I am Vic Wilder. I've been here just under a year. I started in September. I'm glad I could come to this community. I have a lot of history here. I went to school in Hononegah. My dad was a police chief here, and my brother's still the police. So we'll move forward. So you wonder, what is code enforcement? It's pretty simple. It's basically enforcing the ordinances that are set forth by the village officials, which are you folks. So I don't make rules, I just enforce them. So when the constituents don't like the way things are, I tell them they can come and talk to you fine folks and try to get them changed. A lot of people ask, why? Are we just here to nitpick? Are we here just to aesthetically make sure people have a nice home or the businesses look good? And it's really to protect public health. And that's when I came from the health department, it is people's public health. It's the health of our community. Again, what do we feel pride in and things like that? We want to be safe. We want to make sure that the police are going to be able to watch all of our children on Halloween. And also the moral. I mean, we see things, signs, what can we put on signs? What can we have displayed? And these are all things to make sure that we have a grasp on what's being done in our community. So public health and safety is kind of the main thing I want to start with. We have several codes within our ordinances that pertain to this. The main one is called 13351, which is the maintenance of a property. Some of our codes, I am going to have to admit, are a little outdated. They work, they function. We get moving forward. Hopefully we can update some other things. But property maintenance, our code basically reads that you got to maintain your property to ensure public safety without causing a nuisance or to diminish the value of the property or the neighboring properties. Kind of hard to fight in court that someone, even with 13 junk cars, his property is diminished when their taxes are going up all the time, right? So it's kind of a vague code. I think we can improve that, but it does show that the nuisance, and nuisance is the big thing that we try to harp on to people. That's what they have to remove, whether it be, if you go to the next slide, junk in a yard, it could be oil containers on the side. So people ask, well, what so bad about having wood or burning that wood? It's construction debris, not debris that's been growing on your property that can be burned. So though we have a burning ordinance, it does not include burning anything that you'd like to. Motor vehicles, we get a lot of things about motor vehicles. I handle stuff on private property. Usually when it's on the roadway, then we leave it to the police officers. Our code does pretty much follow what most state guidelines say, is that no person shall have a dismantled, wrecked, or non-operating vehicle on their premise for 10 days or more. So a lot of times on violations like that, if we see a vehicle that's in a drive, it may be on jack stands, it may have flat tires. We'll make a note of the date. We come back in 10 days. If it's there, we send notification for it at that time. Weeds
is required that they be licensed or registered, or is just operable?
License and registered.
license and, yeah.
Both. They have to be
No,
both.
if you're not, you are inoperable under our code.
Okay,
Okay. Right now, this time of year, the biggest thing we deal with is weeds, tall grass. Again, the ordinance is pretty similar to what you'll find in most municipalities. Once the grass is at 12 inches, it must be mowed. or once between May and June 30th, and once between July 1st and August 31st. Again, 12 inches is pretty tall weeds. Things can start looking pretty bad at 8, 7. Other places we can address that in regards to staying not looking well is under the maintenance, the general maintenance of the property. So there is ways to get around that.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So when you're going through this is gonna be all new to us.
Mhm.
Can you just advise us that you would advise and submit code adjustments to these? Is that what the plan would be?
If we were gonna make adjustments to the codes.
Yeah, I mean, some.
Oh, sure,
your comments, like,
Oh.
you know, I would say. After you go through this, like, yeah, I would suggest doing this, and you know what to write, what we should have to update it.
Yeah, I will get to that for you.
Okay.
Going towards the end, just because it's kind of a general thing where we can clean them all up a bunch.
Okay, towards the end.
Yeah, I know, I'm getting close. The other thing would be dangerous buildings. Again, on the mow, we do send notification if they do not mow. If they do not mow within the time period we give them a 10-day notice that we'll be entering the property to mow. Then we do have a company that we contract with that will go and mow the lots for us. So we've had
Do we
to,
charge the homeowner?
we go back and then put a lien. Joe will go ahead and lien the property for those costs. We've had a few so far. The good thing is that we've actually just recently had some really good compliance out of some major areas that have not been mowed. And those should be getting done. Some of them were done this week. Even I know Hidden Creek, we got all those vacant lots mowed, and even along the nature ways to do at least the right of way. So we did get some good stuff there. Dangerous buildings is another thing. We couldn't deal with the health department on some of that. I do like the fact that we can address dangerous buildings as far as for public health, fire hazards, collapsing, or just being unsecured. We recently had several apartments that have been found to be abandoned. They were condemned by the health department, and we're standing open for some time, and the health department to go back through and secure them. And we recently had a home also in the Prairie Flower area where it was a vacant home. The bank wasn't doing anything. The realtor did not want to do anything, and we did have to have that property mowed. And also through the county, I am licensed to do larviciding, which is just basically putting non-hazardous chemicals into open bodies of water to ensure mosquito growth does not happen. So that was taking place. The good thing about all this is within a week of us doing this, the house did sell, and the new owner is there and is very willing to put that house back on the market within 6 months. So you will not have that blighted property anymore, which is that property. Besides public health and safety, we also do a zoning, and under 15-3, the village's code enforcement officer shall also serve as the inspector for zoning. This also includes things of development of new residential areas. It also deals with setbacks, making sure foundations are where they're supposed to be compared to the pins. And then we also go into a lot of things that we permit. But again, why do we have zoning? It's also there to promote the safety, the general welfare, and also conserving the taxable value of land and preserving the aesthetic value. So yes, we do want our place to look good. And I think that's kind of the old saying, if you look good, you feel good, everything's going to be a lot better. So things that I deal with a lot in zoning is dealing with some of the accessory buildings, accessory structures. Those go into, there is a difference. Strangely enough, neither can be in your front yard, but an accessory building can be up to 700 square foot if we have less than 1 acre, and up to 1,200. And that's just the code, so that's anything. And if you were just on a structure, that would be more of your shed up to 200 square feet. So that's just kind of the things you're going to buy at Lowe's or your local hardware store and maybe construct yourself. Fencing, I'm not familiar exactly when fencing and some of these permitting processes came about. So I know if we look around the village here, we do have a lot of fences that we'd probably question and say, title code. But if they've been up for a period, we're not always the ordinances. Am I correct, Scott?
That's absolutely correct.
So the good thing is most of these fences won't last forever. And as they get replaced, then we can enforce our ordinance on those. And again, those things go into requirements, difference between residential versus just any parcel we have fence requirements on, locations where the fences can be, the material for what the fences can be made out of, and things such as that. And then that's where I work closely with Janelle as well, who's assistant here on the permitting process where we permit for fencing, pools, decks, accessory buildings, driveways, temporary signs. So when I'm out in the community, if we see some work going on, pool guys love dropping off the pool 2 or 3 days before they're gonna install it. So it's very easy if we're in the community to find people that may not have gotten a permit. So driving around, we're able to just get back with Janelle. Someone got a valid permit, yeah, good to go. If not, we start that process. And that's sort of what we lead into is what is the process? In my line of business, we're to assume that everyone is ignorant and just does not know what the ordinance is. So it's never a ticket, it's never a fine to begin with. It's always educating, acknowledging what the code is, giving time to comply. So complaints can be filed with the village. They can call in, they can email. We have something to come in through text.my.gov, which is another form of media that can get a hold of us. Once someone makes a complaint, if it's exterior, we don't ask for their information. If they want to stay anonymous, it's completely fine. I go out, I investigate. There's actually an issue. I become the complainant and we open up a file. Notice will be sent to we always send notice to the owner of record. And then if there may be an occupant that is also there, maybe a tenant, and we have that information, we'll send notice to both. If it's an LLC, we also try to send it to the agent so that the agent knows what's going on with the property as well. We go back and nothing's been done. We can issue a second notice, or if they partially taken care of it or we've been in communication, we can extend that time. Or we can move right to a ticket. That ticket is for an administrative hearing, which is held right here with Joe and myself. And at that point in time, if there's still a violation, we'll prove that case up. Fines can be levied at that time. At that time also, we can have things mowed or even contractual to clean up. If it's a bunch of debris or something on property, we do have the rights to go on and do that with proper notifications too. What makes all this a lot easier is that we got new software when I came on here, which is magnificent. Thank you to everyone involved with that. Comcade software is a software that we brought on back in April. Very well organized. The communication we have with the company is top notch. We've had everything we've needed, any kind of glitch, it's within hours, it's taken care of. And through this, it's all cloud-based. So paper can go by. We're getting rid of all the paper, saving some trees. It manages our cases and schedules all the inspections. So everything on a day, it's not having to figure out what cases due up. You turn on the computer, we log on, what files are due today, all the stats, all of that information, how many weeds complaints we have open, how many rubbish, how many motor vehicles, all that stuff is tracked for us. It also generates the notices. Once I go in and I click that we're at this property and there is a valid complaint, I can put in my case notes, generates the notices right for us. So all we got to do is come back here, print them off, get them in the mail. Very good tool with taking pictures. So with the tablet I have now, I can just take the photos, it uploads them right to Comcade, they're saved there. The only time we ever got to print anything out is if we have to go to court, and then we'll print the whole file off at that time. Again, it also tracks all the data and related cases. If you move to the end, it's just a kind of a semi, kind of what the reports will give. Trying to get it cleaned up right now. The only fault that I've seen with this system is when it gives a recheck date. Sometimes it's on a Saturday or Sunday. So it shows that there's overdue inspections, which I'm kind of a perfectionist. So that irks me that it's on there because they're not late. We get to them when we get back. So we're trying to clean that up. It's a great software system, and it is also linked to eventually, hopefully, do all of our permitting and licensing, which will hopefully be coming this fall. We're kind of the test pilot with Comcade doing that. So I know Janelle's been working with them, getting them all the forms. So good thing is we kind of get to help develop that part of their new system and hopefully get it done exactly how we want stuff. That's basically it in a nutshell. I know I run through things quick. I talk fast. I'm here 8:30 to 5 Monday through Friday. You can reach me here. You can email me. I can look at things. If constituents are coming to you, they always say for every one person we might make mad that had to clean something up, we probably make 3 people that live around there really happy. So I always tell people you're not complaining. That's just you identified something, and I can't see everything myself. So we look for the public to turn things in for us. So,
Thank you.
Vic, can you and I took a drive down Main Street, two houses that looked like they were abandoned.
Yes.
Give us an update on those,
the one on the corner there is abandoned.
one in this, right next to the Main Street Square. That you can hardly see by
The one on the west side of the road, you're talking about that, but yes, I'm gonna have to look back in my notes to see what I've got on that. The one across the street on the east side, the owner's like deceased and I'm trying to locate where it shows it's a daughter that supposedly had,
Okay.
right? There was something.
Surprisingly, somebody was there mowing the grass.
Oh, really?
This got out of the truck and
Okay,
mower and mowed the grass.
and then just got out of town.
Yeah.
I will get you an update on that and I'll email you tomorrow, if that's okay.
You can copy. I think everybody on the board would be interested in an update on that.
Sounds very good.
That I'm sure that they have already or will tell you, but I just happened to be at the county. Looking at a permit issue. And I was there for another reason, but I stopped to ask, and they're either changing or expanding their platform in some way that's going to allow all of their partner entities the ability to access all of their permits and all their steps in their process. So you should be able to check in with the county on any given project and see what inspections have been done on that, where they are in the permitting process. Be nice for new construction.
That'll work. So just one last thing, and I'll let you folks all go over the evening. A lot of the municipalities around this area use what's called the International Property Maintenance Code. And it's, as it says, internationally used. And it's just the basis for what property should be maintained. And it goes a little bit more into how your stairs should be, how your windows should be, how your balusters, things like that. But it also gets a little better description of what sanitation is. And I think it really helps communities be able to weed out some of those things. Under the International Property Maintenance Code 302.1, sanitation says that it's property must be maintained in clean, safe, and sanitary conditions so as not to cause a blight to that or any neighboring properties or as to cause a health hazard. That gets into a lot of things. So when that grass is 8 inches tall and they've got 4 tires in the front yard that are full of water, that is a nuisance of sanitation because we're going to have mosquito growth because of just the tall grass alone. I mean, tall grass alone, it stays damp, is going to cause mosquitoes, and you got the tires. You use the weeds one, someone's gonna say, I'll cut that once it gets to 12 inches. And it's just really, I just think there's some things in there, and I would, if you don't mind, I would like to send you guys some of the codes that are kind of predominant in the property maintenance that I think would help out around.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
But it's adopted as a whole, you don't just adopt it really. So and it's a code process that they update, I believe, every 3 years. I think 2021 was their last one, so 2024 they'll be coming out with a new version. I know the health department, we were on 18 and they were looking to go to 20. There's not a whole lot of differences in between them. I mean, there's little tweaks here and there. It's nice because they kind of conjunction with when the building department moves up to their next with their code, their international code.
If I may, I have a question, Joe. Your recommendation of updating to this code, but the board action would be just to pass resolution and adopt it?
There would be some discussion because I'm almost everybody, including county, everybody else. I'm very familiar with this, a lot of municipalities I work with also have this adopted the versions, but only issue I run into with international property code is that if you keep your own code in place and then you add this code in, you get a lot of conflicts in there. So we either
One or other?
I would recommend probably one or the other, but then also then adding, making sure you tweak this code to match up what we actually want it to be. So there's pluses and minuses for it, but yeah, the board would adopt the code, or if there's parts of it, we can easily insert those parts of it into our code. International property code is probably more extensive than we would often use here. Particularly, we don't have a building department ourselves. We've got the county, but yeah, I mean, obviously, Vic's got experience with it as well. Our code definitely needs to be updated, revised, but whether we adopt something new or just insert things into our current code, that would be sort of the question.
How would you answer that question?
Whatever's the easiest for whoever's got to implement it.
Well, that's you.
Well, no, I have to enforce, I don't have to implement that. That is you folks. If it's easier to say it's easier to take it all and scratch it, I understand. If it's like, well, we just like the verbiage in some of these, sure. I mean, you can just take the verbiage right from there and just change the codes that we have. Yeah, either way, it's possible. So. And as Joe said, I've seen it done both ways. I've seen some municipalities where they do have just kept their same code numbers and they're inserting the verbiage into that.
Well, Vic, if you've identified the ones that are obvious, it seemed like that'd be the simplest. You know, identify the simplest one, insert it and be done with it. Especially if it's so comprehensive that it's beyond the size of our community.
I'll get you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, man.
Thanks, Vic.
Thanks for doing it. Glad you're here.
Great.
Thank you, Vic.
Thank you, Scott.
Public comment? Fire away.
Mike Dunn, 9205 Riverview. I think most of you know me. I just wanted to say hometown holiday. I hope you choose to support it again this year. I've been on the committee a couple of years. Every year it seems to get bigger, more populated. While I sat up there where you're all sitting, did I just say you all? Oh, well. It's always been questioned about Scott's time and how much, while sitting on that committee, I can honestly say that Scott is not let it take away from his duties as village administrator. I've seen him get up and say, I got other things to do, people. I gotta get out of here. He knows where his job is. So that should not be a concern. While I sat up there, I always wanted to bring Roscoe residents to Roscoe. I hear that, you know, Rockton is doing this or South Boyd's doing that. Great, that's fantastic for them. But do we just sit back and say, okay, our residents are having a good time in Rockton, let them go there? Or do we continue to do stuff here to bring our residents to Roscoe? So I hope you consider supporting it again this year. That's all I got. I see everybody's in a hurry to go home, so I'll shut up.
No, it's good.
No, thanks for the comment, Mike.
Oh, great, okay.
We have I got no history with that. So,
Can I bring something up or is it appropriate at this point? I got a message from one of my neighbors, Amanda Werner, who's a teacher at Prairie Hill. And she is on the Jack Bauman Foundation. And I don't know if you guys know who that was, little boy that died in a horrific accident at the YMCA in White in October. It was by a car. And you know, these are primarily Roscoe residents are putting together a fundraiser event around his birthday in October each year. That's what they're planning on. And that says, she said, Benny's and Roscoe's offered their space as a host site. And the idea is to sort of have a Pokemon event where participants get punch cards and hop around to the areas and participating there in the businesses. And they're asking for the village support in this. So I don't know if this is, if you guys are aware of this or something that we could explore supporting this.
Support defined how?
I don't know. I mean, I'll find out. I can come back and find out what we can do. As village.
Thank you.
I don't think we have a need for executive session. No. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. We are adjourned.
This.
What was I? Take off?